Okay, good evening to those here, and for those who will view this at a later date, it's Tuesday, February 3rd. It is about 6:03 p.m. I'm going to call our Selectmen's meeting for this evening to order. We're starting a little bit early tonight in order to allow our town manager, Mr. Montori, to add to the next step in our fiscal 2016 budget process. I know he's been working with his management team and managers throughout the town and school district with respect to the budget, and this is the next step in that process where he will unveil his proposed budget for our consideration. So before we begin the presentation, we always start our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite everyone to please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so we've made some requests as well of Mr. Dermody to make sure that this particular portion of our meeting is segregated from the balance of the meeting, and hopefully in the next few days we'll be able to replay the budget presentation as a separate item through the different media that we have. But obviously want to start this process and turn the floor over to Mr. Montori for any introductory comments in your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The presentation of the budget is similar to what I've done in the past. I believe it's pretty straightforward. Just for the audience and for the selectmen, department heads are here tonight to listen to the budget presentation. They've received their recommended budgets and have reviewed them for any issues or mistakes or changes that need to be made. They did a fantastic job, as usual, on their budget. The only person missing from the audience is Brian Gilbert, who was up with the snowstorm pretty late last night, so I told him
You gave him a night off.
especially since more snow is coming. So
He should be here asking for more money for snow and
he
ice.
will. So, as usual, the FY16 budget process started at the end of October with the budget message that I sent out to all the department heads, asking them to level fund their budgets, with the exception of increases to longevity, step increases for salaries, and to set aside their top two priorities that, if funds were available, what would they fund in the budget. At the end of November, beginning of December, the finance director and I started to review budgets with each department head, going over their requests, their priorities, and just understanding better what their budget was to be. The budget itself is within the same framework as it has been for the last 4 years, broken down into salaries, operating, capital outlay, and water and sewer allocation accounted for within the budget. The budget, now that it's being presented to the board after tonight, will be sent to the finance committee and will be on the website tomorrow. Staff in my office will start making copies to make sure they're at the library, the senior center, the town clerk's office, and the selectman's office, and one over, I think one over here, I'm not sure. As far as the future budget schedule, the finance committee actually begins deliberation on the budget. This deliberation review of the budget this Thursday night. They start with the council on aging, the library, the parks and rec, and they will meet every Thursday from here on in until they've met with all the departments and completed their budget review. This budget is only the operating budget. It does not deal with any capital improvements. That will be dealt with when I present the capital budget and the water and sewer enterprise budget sometime towards the end of February. Tonight, when we review the budget, we'll review expenditures of the overall budget from previous years, what we're projecting for FY16. We'll look at other expenditures aside from the budget, as well as state and county charges that were assessed each year. On the revenue side, we'll review tax levy, state aid, local receipts, and other available funds that help pay for and balance the budget. So starting out, we'll review the appropriations, which is within the presentation that I handed out. The total appropriation for the FY16 budget is $94,629,970. That's an increase of $2,114,471 over the FY15 approved budget. That $2.1 million I just mentioned includes an increase for exempt debt, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, and it is an increase for both the town and school budget. When the town and school, when I looked at the revenue for the town and school budgets this year, the split, as usual, was a 60-40 split between the town and the school. The school's increase was approximately $1.7 million, the town's was approximately $1.1 million. We needed to set aside funds for any increases in Shawshing Tech, which they were in them this year, and for the Essex Agricultural Regional School District also. The second line item on this list, the $253,000, is money we need to raise in the budget that's transferred to the sewer enterprise for prior sewer debt for the old sewer projects that were exempt in the beginning of the first phases of sewer in this community. The $1.1 million, exactly $1,111,394,000 is a new line item on the recap sheet called Reserve for Appropriation. This is money that was part of the town and school new revenue that was set aside because contracts and salary increases have not been finalized on the town and school side. That brings a total budget appropriation of $95,995,088 for FY16. The reason why there's such a large difference between FY15 and FY16 is because the FY15 numbers that you see reflected in this document include all of the actions at town meeting for FY15. It includes a special town meeting in October and last May's annual town meeting. So that's all the transfers to and from the stabilization fund, from CPA funds, from free cash, that's everything. So that's why you have a total amount there of $101 million. When we finish town meetings in May, and then again in October, I'll update all the projections for FY16 as well. Cherry sheet offsets were level funded. These are offsets that we need to raise in our projections, and we're reimbursed when we receive state aid. This is for public libraries as well as schools. The next area that we need to appropriate funds, two areas, overlay reserve, which is what the assessors set aside for abatements and exemptions. Right now I'm budgeting $700,000 for that fund, but historically in the past that will increase based on the formula when we set the tax rate at the Department of Revenue. So that's a number that we plug in for budgetary purposes, but when we do the recap, the finance director goes through that process with the Department of Revenue. That will change. That will most likely increase, especially since we're coming up in a rebuild year for a lot of meadows. The $693,318 is the teacher deferral that we need to pay back. That's the share for FY16 that we need to appropriate. The teacher deferral will run through 2022, so we have a little bit more time before that's paid off. Other appropriations, state and county charges as a whole, we increased state and county charges 10%. That's the projection at this time. I'm not sure exactly what the governor intends to do with any of the state issues regarding funding or assessments. The 10% is something we've used in the past, and we've had a pretty good luck with being either within that 10% or right around that 10%. The biggest part of our local state and county charges is charter school assessment. As you can see, in FY15, we were assessed $1.2 million for children who go out of district to charter schools. projecting it to be 1.4 million in FY16. That brings the total that we need to appropriate for all of our items in FY16 to $99,256,168. Now, the way we're going to pay for that, I hope to pay for that because everything I'm going to go through right now is a projection. The first big source of revenue is the tax levy. The tax levy will increase to the maximum 2.5%, projecting $800,000 in growth, bringing the tax levy before any debt exclusions to $65,944,005. The projected debt exclusions for FY16 is the $8,245,844. As I mentioned earlier when I discussed the increase in the budget, part of that increase is for debt exclusions, and that increase was $354,483. So the tax levy that we're projecting for FY16 is $74,189,839 that will help pay for this FY16 budget. State aid, I'm projecting level funded. I don't anticipate seeing an increase in state aid. Each year we get, this past year we received, our FY15 we're projected to receive $16,116,404. The Governor Baker has committed not to cutting state aid. Hopefully that stays true. So I'm projecting level funded for FY16, and hopefully there's no changes to our current state aid for FY15. Just a note, state aid, I mentioned how charter schools cost us $1.2 million. We received $321,838 in reimbursements from the Commonwealth, far short of what it's supposed to be. Local revenue is projected to increase $172,692 for FY16. Not a major increase. I looked at an average over the last 5 years for all of our revenue lines, and the average came in close to this $8.3 million. It's an area I really hesitate to increase any further. We've made some increases over the last few years. This is where we generate our free cash. This is where we keep a cushion in case there are any cuts to state aid mid-year. So I'm really comfortable that we stick to the $8,345,270 that we're projecting until the finance director and I have a chance to see what comes in at the end of this fiscal year. Other available funds, the only other available fund at this time is $606,646 for teacher deferral. And the way the teacher deferral works is we have to pay back a certain amount each year, but we get to use a certain amount each year as projected revenue. The difference is approximately $80,000 we have to pay back each year. Again, that will end in 2022. So as you can see from the bottom line, the budget is balanced to the penny. That should be no shock to anybody. And that's where we stand at the moment. Next slide just gives you a summary of everything I just talked about. For our appropriations, cherry sheet offsets, all of our other revenue. It just gives you, again, a snapshot of everything I just went through on the summary of the The next slide is a summary of the budgets expended for FY12, 13, 14, what we budgeted in 15, and what I'm recommending in 16.